Hello, everybody. Hello. Thank you for reminding me. Oh, I fell asleep. Can you see me okay? Yeah, I just fell back to sleep. I took a 10-minute nap and then woke up and asked Chris how long I'd been asleep. He said about 10 minutes. I went back to sleep. So good afternoon, everybody. Today will be the last Sunday A meeting. I will be working on Saturdays and Sundays starting this next weekend. So probably going to only be doing one meeting a week, and I'll keep doing that one on Tuesdays. Um, so yeah, hopefully, um, anyway, so here, welcome. This is AA meeting. I'm going to be dropping down only once a week, and so we'll see how doing Tuesdays works. If I have to change it, I will, but I'll still be doing at least once a week. I need my glasses, so just a minute. Sorry, forgot about my glasses. All right. I'm Sandra and I'm an alcoholic. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Please be mindful of others in the chat. Don't go harassing them on their channel. Um, don't be passing judgment. This is a judgment-free zone. And I just like to keep it that way. Be friendly and all of that good stuff. And so let's go ahead and get reading the steps. Step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defective characters. 7. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. 10. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continue to take personal inventory and when wrong, promptly admit it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So we were in the middle of step 12, and I always put it in the description what book we're reading, what page, what story, or what step, or what tradition, whichever we're reading. And so I stopped halfway through the step 12 last week because it's a long one. And so we're going to start off on the top of page 114. It should be step 12. Our basic troubles are the same as everyone else's, but when an honest effort is made to practice these principles in all our affairs, well-grounded AAs seem to have the ability, by God's grace, to take these troubles in stride and turn them into demonstrations of faith. We have seen AAs suffer lingering and fatal illness with little complaint, and often in good cheer. We have sometimes seen families broken apart by misunderstanding, tensions, or actual infidelity who are reunited by the AA's way of life. So through the earning power of most AAs is relatively high, we have some members who never seem to get on their feet money-wise, and still others who encounter heavy financial reverses, ordinarily who see these situations met with fortitude and faith. Hi, Desert Adventures in Arizona. Thank you for being here. Like most people, we have found that we can take our big lumps as they come. But also, like others, we often discover a great challenge in the lesser and more continuous problem of life. Our answer is in still more spiritual development. Only by this means can we improve our chances for real happy and useful living. And as we grow spiritually, we find that our old attitude towards our instincts need to undergo drastic revisions. Our desire for emotional security and wealth, for personal prestige and power, for romance, and for family satisfaction, all these have to be tempered and redirected. We have learned that the satisfaction of instincts cannot be the sole end and aim of our lives. If we place instinct first, we have got the cart before the horse. I'm going to go here. Here. Trying to figure out how to do moderator. I'll figure it out later. We have learned that the satisfaction of instincts cannot be the sole end and aim of our lives. If we place instinct first, we have got the cart before the horse. we shall be pulled backwards into delusionment. But when we are willing to place spiritual growth first, then and only then do we have a real chance. After we come into AA, if we go on growing, our attitudes and actions towards security, emotional security, and financial security commence to change profoundly. Our demand for emotional security for our own way had constantly thrown us into an unworkable relation with other people. Though we were sometimes quite unconscious of this, the result always had been the same. Either we had tired of play God and dominate those about us, or we had insisted on being over dependent upon them, where people had temporarily let us run their lives as though they were still children and had felt very happy and secure ourselves. But when they finally resisted or ran away, we were bitterly hurt and disappointed. We blamed them, being quite unable to see that our unreasonable demands had been the cause. When we had taken the opposite tack and had insisted, like infants ourselves, that people protect and take care of us, or that we would owe, or that the world owed us a living, then the result had been equally unfortunate. This often caused the people we had loved most to push us aside or perhaps desert us entirely. Our disillusionment had been hard to bear. We couldn't imagine people acting that way towards us. We had failed to see that through adult in years we were still behaving childishly, trying to turn everybody, friends, wives, husbands, even the world itself, into protective parents. We had refused to learn the very hard lesson that over dependence upon people is unsuccessful because all people are fallible and even the best of them will sometimes let us down, especially when our demand for attention becomes unreasonable. Hi, Ava. As we made spiritual progress, we saw through the fallacies. It became clear that if we ever were to feel emotionally secure among grown-up people, we would have to put our lives on a give and take basis. We would have to develop the sense of being in partnership or brotherhood with all those around us. We saw that we would need to give constantly of ourselves without demands for repayment. When we persistently did this, we gradually found that people were attracted to us as never before. And even if they failed us, we could be understanding and not too seriously affected. When we developed still more and more, we discovered the best possible source of emotional stability to be God Himself. We found that dependence upon his perfect justice, forgiveness, and love was healthy, and that it would work where nothing else would. If we really depend upon God, we couldn't very well play God to our fellows, nor would we feel the urge wholly to rely on human protection and care. There were the new attitudes that finally brought many of us an inner strength and peace that could not be deeply shaken by the shortcomings of others or by any calamity not of our own making. This new outlook was we learned something especially necessary to us alcoholics. For alcoholism had been a lonely business even though we had been surrounded by people who loved us. But when self-will and had driven everybody away and our isolation had become complete, it caused us to play the big shot in cheap barrooms and then fare forth alone on the street to depend upon the charity of passersby. We were still trying to find emotional security by dominating or dependent upon others. Even when our fortunes had not ebbed that much, and we nevertheless found ourselves alone in the world, we still vainly tried to be secure by some unhealthy kind of domination or dependence for those of us who were like that. AA had a very special meaning. Through it, we begin to learn right relations with people who understand us. We don't have to be alone anymore. Most married folks in AA have very happy homes to surprising extent. AA has offset the damage to family life brought about by years of alcoholism. But just like all other societies, we do have sex and marital problems. And sometimes they are distressingly acute. Permanent marriage breakups and separations, however, are unusual in AA. Our main problem is not how we are to stay married, it is how to be more happily married by eliminating the severe emotional twists that have so often stemmed from alcoholism. Nearly every sound human being experiences at some time in life a compelling desire to find a mate of the opposite sex with whom the fullest possible union can be made spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. This mighty urge is the root of great human accomplishments, a creative energy that deeply influences our lives. God fashioned us that way. So our question will be this: how, by ignorance, compulsion, and self-will, do we minus this gift for our own destruction? We AAs cannot pretend to offer full answers to age-old perplexities, but our own experience does provide certain answers that work for us. When alcoholism strikes, very unnatural situations may develop which work against marriage partnership and compatible union. If the man is affected, the wife must become the head of the house, often the breadwinner. As matter get worse, the husband becomes a sick and irresponsible child who needs to be looked after and extricated from endless scrapes and impasses. Very gradually and usually without any recognition of the fact the wife is forced to become the mother of an erring boy. After if sorry, and if she had a strong material or maternal instinct to be being with, the situation is aggravated. Obviously, not much partnership can exist under these conditions. The wife usually goes on the best she knows how, but meanwhile, the alcoholic alternately loves and hates her maternal care. A pattern is thereby established that may take a lot of undoing later on. Nevertheless, under the influence of AA's 12 steps, these situations are often set right. When the distortion has been great, however, a long period of patient striving may be necessary. Where was I? Compatibility, of course, can be so impossibly damaged that a separation may be necessary, but those cases are the unusual ones. The alcoholic realizing that what his wife has endured and now fully understands how much he himself did to damage her and his children, nearly always takes up his marriage responsibilities with the willingness to repair what he can and to accept what he can't. He persistently tries all of AA's 12 steps in his home, often with fine results. At this point, he firmly but lovingly commences to behave like a partner instead of like a bad boy. And above all, he is finally convinced that reckless romancing is not a way of life for him. AA has many single alcoholics who wish to marry and are in a position to do so. Some marry fellow AAs. How do they come out? On the whole, these marriages are very good ones. Their common suffering as drinkers, their common interest is AA, and spiritual things often enhance such unions. It is only where boy meets girl on AA's campus and love follows at first sight that difficulties may develop. The prospective partner need to be solid AAs and long enough acquainted to know that their compatibility at spiritual, mental, and emotional levels is a fact and not wishful thinking. They need to be as sure as possible that no deep-lying emotional handicap in either will be likely to raise up under later pressures to cripple them. The consideration is equally true and important for AAs who marry outside AA with clear understanding and right grown-up attitude. Very happy results do follow. And what can be said of many AA members who, for a variety of reasons, cannot have a family life? At first, many of these feel lonely, hurt, and left out as they witness too much domestic happiness about them. If they cannot have this kind of happiness, can AA? Often, them satisfactions are similar worth and durability. Yes, whenever they try hard to seek them out. Surrounded by so many AA friends, these so-called loners tell us they no longer feel alone in partnership with others, women and men. They can devote themselves to any number of ideas, people, and constructive projects, free of material responsibilities. They can participate in enterprises which would be denied to family men and women. We daily see such members render prodigies and service and receive great joys in return. Where the possession of money and material things was concerned, our outlook underwent the same revolutionary change. With a few exceptions, all of us had been spin, spendthrifts. We threw money about in every direction with the purpose of pleasing ourselves and impressing other people. In our drinking time, we acted as if the money supply was inextinguishable. Though between binges, we'd sometimes go to the other extreme and become almost miserly. Without realizing it, we were just accumulating funds for the next spree. Money was a symbol of pleasure and self-importance. There it is. When our drinking had become much worse, money was only an urgent requirement which could supply us with the next drink and the temporary comfort of oblivion it brought. Upon entering AA, these attitudes were sharply reversed, often going much too far in the opposite direction. The spectacle of years of waste threw us into panic. There simply wouldn't be time, we thought, to rebuild our shattered fortunes. How could we ever take care of those awful debts, possess a decent home, educate the kids, and set something by for old age? Financial importance was no longer our principal aim. We now clamored for material security. Even when were well reestablished in our business, these terrible fears often continued to haunt us. This made us miser and penny pinchers all over again. Complete financial security we must have, or else. We forgot that most alcoholics in AA have an earning power considerably above average. We forgot the immense goodwill of our brother AAs, who were only too eager to help us to better jobs when we deserved them. We forgot the actual or potential financial insecurities of every human being in the world. And worst of all, we forgot God. In money matters, we had faith only in ourselves, and not too much of that. This all meant, of course, that we were still far off balance, when a job still looked like a mere means of getting money rather than an opportunity for service. When the questions of money for financial independence looked more important than the right dependence upon God. We were still the victim of unreasonable fear, and these were fears which would make a serene and useful existence at any financial level quite impossible. But as time passed, we found that with the help of AA's 12 steps, we could lose those fears, no matter what our material prospects were. We could cheerfully perform humbly labor without worrying about tomorrow. If circumstances happened to be good, we no longer dreaded a change for the worse, for we had learned that these troubles could be turned into great values. It did not matter too much that our material condition was, but it did matter what our spiritual condition was. Money gradually became our servant and not our master. It became a means of exchanging love and service with those about us. When with God's help we calmly accept our lot, then we found we could live at peace with ourselves and show others who still suffered the same fears that they could get over them too. We found that freedom from fear was more important than freedom from want. Let's here take note of our improved outlook upon the problem of personal importance, power, ambition, and leadership. These were reefs upon which many of us came to shipwreck during our drinking careers. Practically every boy in the United States dreams of becoming our president. He wants to be his country's number one man. As he gets older and sees the impossibility of this, he can smile good naturedly at his childhood dreams. In later life, he finds that real happiness is not to be found in just trying to be a number one, or even a first grader in the heartbreaking struggle of money, romance, or self importance. He learns that he can be content as long as he plays well whatever cards life deals him. He's still ambitious, but not absurdly so, because he can now see and accept actual reality. He's willing to stay right size. But not so with alcoholics. When AA was quite young, a number of eminent psychologists and doctors made an exhaustive study of a good-sized group of so-called problem drinkers. The doctors were trying to find how different we were for one another. They sought to find whatever personality traits, if any, this group of alcoholics had in common. They finally came up with a conclusion that shocked the AA members of that time. These distinguished men had the nerve to say that most of the alcoholics under investigation were still childish, emotionally sensitive, and grandiose. Grandiose, why did we say that? How we alcoholics did resent that verdict. We would not believe that our adult dreams were often truly childish, and considering the rough deal life had given us, we felt it perfectly natural that we were sensitive. As to our grandiose behavior, we insisted that we had been possessed of nothing but a high and legitimate ambition to win the battle of life. In the years since, however, most of us have come to agree with those doctors. We have had a much keener look at ourselves and those about us. We have seen that we were prodded by unreasonable fears or anxieties into making a life business of winning fame, money, and what we thought was leadership. So false pride became the reverse side of the ruinous coin marked fear. We simply had to be number one people to cover up our deep lying inferiorities. In fitful successes, we boasted a great feat to be done. In success, we became, skip some. In defeat, we were bitter. If we didn't have much of an worldly success, we became depressed and cowed. Then people said we were of the inferior type, but now we see ourselves as chips off the same old block. At heart, we had all been abnormally fearful. It mattered little whether we had sat on the shore of a life drinking ourselves into forgetfulness or had plunged in recklessly and willfully beyond our depth and ability. The result was the same. All of us had nearly perished in a sea of alcohol. But today, in well matured AAs, these distorted drives have been restored to something like their true purpose and direction. We no longer strive to dominate or rule those about us in order to gain self-importance. We no longer seek fame and honor in order to be praised. When we devoted service to family, friends, business, or community, we attract widespread affection and are sometimes singled out for posts of greater responsibility and trust. We try to be humbly grateful and exert ourselves the more in a spirit of love and service, and true leadership, we find, depends upon able example and not upon vain displays of power or glory. Still more wonderful is the feeling that we do not have to be specially distinguished among our fellows in order to be useful and profoundly happy. Not many of us can be leaders of prominence, nor do we wish to be. Service gradually rendered, obligations squarely met, troubles well accepted or solved with God's help. The knowledge that at home or in the world outside, we are partners in a common effort The well understood fact that in God's sight, all human beings are important. The proof that love freely given surely brings a full return. The certainty that we are no longer isolated and alone in self-constructed prisons. The surety that we need no longer be square pegs in round holes, but can fit and belong in God's scheme of things. These are the permanent and legitimate satisfaction of right living, for which no amount of prompt and circumstance, no heap of material possessions could possibly be substitutes. True ambition is not what we thought it was. True ambition is the the deep desire to live usefully and walk humbly under the grace of God. These little studies of AA's 12 steps now come to a close. We have been considering so many problems that it may appear that AA consists mainly on racking dilemmas and troubleshooting. To a certain extent, that is true. We have been talking about problems because we are problem people who have found a way up and out and who wish to share our knowledge of that way with all who can use it. For it is only by accepting and solving our problem that we can begin to get right with ourselves and with the world about us and with Him who presides over us all. Understanding is the key to right principle and attitudes, and right action is the key to good living. Therefore, the joy of good living is the theme of AA's 12th step. With each passing day of our lives, may every one of us sense more and deeply the inner meaning of AA's simple prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's exactly right. Doing the steps, they all work together. And the reason I say you have to want it for the right reason is because nobody can fix you but you. And if you sincerely want to quit drinking and live a better life of feeling welcome and loved and cared about and all those good things in life, and be able to deal with those bad things in life at the same time. The 12 steps work. They really do work. I'm 10 years and 8 months sober, and every day has been worth it. Even my first day without alcohol. I went through withdrawals really bad. I did them on my own. Twice I did them on my own. But when I found AA by a friend saying, let's go to a meeting, that's how I have managed to stay sober and use my program that I've learned through the years of how I work my steps and how I do my steps on a daily. It may not be the same way that somebody else needs to work theirs, and that's fine. we all have that one common thing that we share, and that is we are alcoholics. And by learning the 12 steps and reading all the literature and attending meetings and, you know, doing all the things that I personally have done for me is how I'm able to sit here and share with you that AA works. It works for more than just not drinking. I quit smoking a year and 4 months ago. Um, I have cravings. Even to this day, I still think about alcohol. I don't think about it all the time, and I don't want it like I used to. I'm like way out of that pink cloud part, but you know, every now and then I do have that reminder in my head. You know, remember when you drank that, and then I would think, you know, go into those things. Yeah, air conditioners are a critical thing in life, especially where you are, Steve. That's hot. No way. That's why I'm not going to Arizona. But the newcomers are the ones that we really need to. Hi, Cheryl. Thank you, Steve. But working the steps, it can be easy and it can be hard. It all depends upon you. I was stumped on step 4 for a long time. I want to say it took me a good 4 or 5 months to actually get that one done. But that one is admitting to myself what I had done wrong. And of course, there was things in there that was not my fault, that was out of my control. But still, I didn't know that. Just like most people that have been through that don't know that. But I've been able to change my thinking on having to drink over that. Because I did drink because of that to a point. You know, that was added into those things of life that I didn't like. I did drink as a teenager. I got pregnant as a teenager. I was a mom as a teenager to 2. And I didn't hit my alcoholic days until I was in my 30s. But I knew I could end up being that. And for all the way up until I was in my 30s, I was able to convince myself that I was not going to become that person. And then I became that person. But my kids weren't home all day long. They were at school. And so I was by myself. And what better to do than go out there and start drinking at 7 o'clock in the morning. And that's what I did. That was going on for quite a while. And then I quit drinking for a year. And then right back out there. And that's why this time of me quitting, I really continued work on my steps and sharing my story and sharing AA with other people and becoming willing to say that, yeah, I'm a recovering alcoholic and I'll tell anybody. I'm not shy about it. Not shy at all about it. Obviously, I'm doing it here on the internet. And that's my purpose, is trying to help the next alcoholic who still suffers. And not all of us get out. And If I can help one person, then I've done my job right. And I know I've helped quite a few, so I feel really good about it. And I'll never forget when I first started my channel and I was talking to one of my friends. She knows who she is. She wants to say hi if she can. I asked, I said, what do you think about somebody doing AA meetings on YouTube? And she says, well, I wouldn't suggest it, and I'm not sure it's a wise idea. But there's nothing wrong with trying. I do wear that. I wear all of mine as badges of honor. I really do. And but I decided that I was going to go ahead and put it up here because why not? It's free. I pay for the internet. I can, share my story and do meetings here, and I don't have to do them all the time. They don't have to be on a set schedule. But I have to change my meetings because I can still do Tuesday mornings at 11, but I can't do Sundays because I go back to work on Saturday. So, and I'm working 10-hour days. So it's gonna be different for a while. And but you can always watch the reruns. And I have to say, one other friend of mine here in chat, if you see someone without a smile, give them yours. I do that every day. Since I started walking, there was this gentleman he's over selling wooden roses. Wooden roses. Yes, you heard that right. And he's an older gentleman. He is disabled. And he was packing his stuff up, and I was just happened to be getting ready to walk by, and he's got this big old sign sitting out there, one of those folding signs. You pick it up and it closes. So I was nice, and I picked it up and took it over to his car and leaned it up against his. I said, have a good day. And I'm sure that made his day a little brighter. And when I'm doing my laps, if I see anybody, I smile at them and tell them good morning or good afternoon and whatnot. And AA's given me that voice to be able to, share my story here and be more positive, because we need more positivity in this world. All the negative is going to drive you crazy. But yes, it's great to have a circle of sober friends that can understand what you're going through, and not everybody is open about it. I mean, some people are very ashamed of being that alcoholic. Even if they quit a long time ago, they're still ashamed of it, or they still haven't admitted it. And those ones that we can't say, it's sad because they should know that there's help out there, and there's help with everything. And a lot of people don't feel that. And that's just like a lot of them don't realize that they're the ones that left their family, not the family leaving them. Because when we're alcoholics and we're in our drinking days, that's one thing that we're really good at, is shoving people away. By being a mean person, by stealing or what have you, whatever the thing is. That's us telling them that we don't want them anywhere around us, and we take ourselves away from everybody and isolate. And that I did that for quite a while, and I'm glad I'm not doing that. Yep, Ava, a smile can mean a lot to every, like, definitely. Just a smile, it can change somebody's whole day by just smiling at them. Oh, that's cool, Shirley. That's really cool. Yeah, that's like we get. I've had one of the, I had a guy coming in here and he was telling us his story, and um, he said that he wanted to make sure that he could delete it if he wanted to, or I could delete it if he wanted me to. And then by the time I was done with the meeting, he decided he was going to leave it there. And that meant so much to me because it's the truth. A lot of people are still ashamed of being not alcoholic. And it's sad because until they can accept that they are that alcoholic and be okay with that title and adding recovering in front of that, they can't really live a life of being happy and just being fine with the way life is. And some people, it's really hard, you know, depending on what they have done and how they feel about it and how far they are and how what ways they're working their steps or all of that. And it can be truly hard for people to open up about being an alcoholic. And I know for me, it took me a while to finally accept that I was what I am. I'm a recovering alcoholic. But I realized I was the alcoholic, and I was like, because I have depression and anxiety, and I was covering it up, medicating myself. And that is a major problem. And so when I finally admitted that I had anxiety and depression, I opened up to my doctor and I told her that I'm an alcoholic and I needed help. And she helped me the best she could. And they never told me to go to AA, that's for sure. But even then, just being where I'm at in my program and knowing that it helps to share. And thank you, Ava. That makes me happy. I'm glad he's sober. Yeah, because some people don't know what not to say or what to say, and it can be tricky for the ones who are not the alcoholic and trying to help the alcoholic, not knowing what what things you can say that will help. Uh, what physical ways you can help. Not physically touching them and stuff, but being there in the present and helping them face to face and dealing with their feelings. And you need to know what things that you could try to help get them through it when they're first going through the beginning parts. And yeah, a lot of people don't know what to say. I mean, my dad, for quite a while, I'd say, well, I'm X amount of days sober. or months or whatever. And when I first started going to AA, my dad would say, well, I just had a beer a couple weeks ago or whatever. And it's like, that's not helping me. And finally, I told him, I said, that doesn't help me any. It doesn't help me at all. And so he doesn't do that anymore. Um, they have, my parents have accepted that I'm probably going to be sharing things about when I was a teenager that I did that they didn't know. And, sometimes I do pop off with something. Like I snagged a change, and yes, I did. I admitted it, and they know it. And, but the still drinking me wouldn't even think to say that. I would never admit it. But I'm not worried about it. They know. And that's because, when you're in that point of life, hey, you do whatever you can to get that drink. And that's what I did. But as an adult, I didn't steal from people. I just spent money we didn't have to spend. And, you know. But anyways, I'm going to read the daily reflection and let you guys go about your Sunday afternoon. July 27th. Giving freely. How do we do that? We will make every personal sacrifice necessary to ensure the unity of Alcoholics Anonymous. We will do this because we have learned to love God and one another. It's AA Comes of Age, page 234. To be self-supporting through our own contributions was never a strong characteristic during my days as a practicing alcoholic. The giving of time or money always demanded a price tag. As a newcomer, I was told we have to give it away in order to keep it. As I began to adopt the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous in my life, I soon found it was a privilege to give to the fellowship as an expression of the gratitude I felt in my heart. My love of God and of others became the motivating factor in my life with no thought of return. I realize now that giving freely is God's way of expressing himself through me. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I'm getting ready to. Multnomah Falls, I've lived here my whole life and I've never made it to the top, but I'm going to. I'm up to 4 miles a day. 4 miles. So, I love you guys. Have a great day. And thanks for being encouraging. And if you're struggling today, there is always help. Make a phone call. Call Alcoholics Anonymous. Look them up online. There might be a meeting available where you're at. Please just don't do anything drastic without asking for help first. So, I love you guys. Be safe out there. Be kind. And keep this message going. Love you guys.